I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a regular school board meeting of the Tri-State United School Board. Tonight is September 10th, Monday. We are located at the TCU High School Band Room. Roll call finds all present.
Brenda, can you bring up the board book, please?
And while she brings that up there, I just want to know, let you guys know, there's an addition to the packet under the consent agenda, under the contracts, work agreements, and work policy, the letter of agreement for Kid Zone, and I would assume that's ECFE.
Yep.
And then, so we have our administrative reports, which we'll bring up here.
All right. Well, as we're starting a new school year, this is just a good reminder for all of our public and a good reminder for our board members as well. Rather than having administrative verbal reports at every single board meeting, we do written reports, and so these are always within the administrative report piece. And what each of our directors and principals or coordinators do is kind of give some main highlights of what's going on within their department or in their school, and as it pertains to our 4 strategic directions. So these reports are out there for our public to view, and we certainly hope that they're reading through them because there's really valuable information in being able to stay up to date. And then at the board meeting, I do just hit a few highlights throughout rather than reading them to everyone. So these are public available, and for our board to have a chance to read through and review. So in hitting a few of the highlights, we'll start with our high school. We do have the practice ACT test on Friday, September 21st coming up, I should say. We're anticipating around 140 juniors to be taking that. Some big steps within our PBIS, not just this wonderful donation from Waste Management to be able to support the celebrations that take place, but also focusing on 3, as they're calling them, lightning bolts of respecting ourselves and others, taking responsibility for our learning and actions, and practicing self-control. You're going to see that within some of our other sites as I go through some highlights here as well. Turn too many pages. At TCU La Center, really, I know that Mr. Grensteiner had referenced in the last report on the book study that they're doing with Habits of Mind and how that fits so well with our COSTA's levels of rigor, and also with mindfulness, the types of things for social emotional supports. And they're also moving their staff meetings to more of a professional development format, focusing on ELL students within reading and also our worker strategies of AVID. At TCU Lonsdale, lots of info within the North Star report and some of the comparatives to the state, and we're going to be talking about the assessment results here later on as information item. But some areas of real highlights is the number or percentages of students that are showing improvements, but also within the achievements, and not only being higher than the thresholds, but higher than the state average in each of these areas as well. And being earning the recognition of excellence in consistent attendance in special education, as well as excellence in math progress overall. Also a little bit of a shift in the language at TCU Lonsdale within Leader in Me, referencing instead of the phrase Leader in Me, which really is the 7 Habits logoed piece, moving to Lonsdale Leaders, which you would see throughout the school. Kind of the leadership happens here, and leaders grow here. Some aspects within our food service department. Our high school, as we well know, with our growing student numbers at our high school, which we have projected, and they really are showing up, which is wonderful. We've moved to 2 serving lines, whereas in the past it was a single, kind of trying to dovetail off. So now bringing 2 in with 2 cashiers, and really has helped to make some efficiencies there. We're also piloting a second chance breakfast option at TCU La Center, focusing on their K-4 students. At some schools, the younger kids do come down to the cafeteria for breakfast, and some it doesn't work out, and so always trying to find whatever ways we can to reach as many children as we can with that important morning meals. At TCU Montgomery, I know they've been working on their goals already and have started fast testing, as we are at all of our sites. In particular, though, really working on goals, which I know they did some significant work at our data summit and are rolling those out with staff. And then also, as I referenced a little bit ago, within their PBIS kickoff with the September focus on self-control, kind of a good way to get yourself back in school mindsets of taking care of yourself and others. And a school theme of construction, and as Deb mentions here, some of the door decorations, and I've seen a lot of those of growing and building, and that's really kind of fun. Within our special services, I'd like to highlight some of the upcoming parent meetings. Our Special Education Advisory Council meets on September 17th. And then we also have an English language parent meeting, which will be on September 27th, and really important times to be able to connecting with our parents. Our business office, again, continues to be preparing for the levy, but also tonight is we'll take that first step in certification so that we can start doing data runs and work within clarifying of data and everything. Within our community education, I want to hit an area within our early childhood. It's called Early Childhood Initiative. This used to be called the Advisory Council, but there was a planning team that met, really taking a look at early childhood and some of the studies that have gone on regionally. And some of the areas that really came through as priorities is transportation and the shortage of daycares within our region, but not just our region, but throughout the state. There's been a great deal of studies done, and so it's a challenging area for our families with little ones and everything, being able to find that caring supports. And we certainly have got outstanding people in the daycare business here in our communities, but just not enough. School readiness begins, which is really our little titans, begins on September 4th, or started on September 4th, and 13 of our 15 classes are full and with waiting lists. And then our ECFE starts on September 10th. And don't have quite as large of an enrollment in ECFE as in Little Titans School Readiness, which is typical. And then finally, the United for Healthy Youth Day. I have to admit, I think because it was so spread out in a wide area, it didn't look like that many people were there, and yet to have had 400 community members and 23 different community organizations there is great. So I think it's just because it's a wide open area and people come and go, and that's what it's meant to be. So again, the report is available for our public to read, and it's been available there as the board packet came out for our board members.
Wonderful, thank you. With that, I'll seek a motion to approve the consent agenda, or approve the agenda with all the noted changes.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Ashley Recevo, second by Dale Buss, to approve the agenda with noted changes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next, we move on to our consent agenda. First, we have the approval of the minutes of the August 13th, 2018 regular school board meeting, and also our August 27th, 2018 special school board meeting. Under personnel, we have new hires. Nicole Head, paraprofessional at the high school. Stacy Blohm, cook's helper at the high school. Brad O'Keefe, junior high football coach, which would be 7th grade. Darian Hunt, junior high football coach, 7th grade. RayShawn Ninow, a junior high football coach, also 7th grade. Under employment ending, we have Jamie Imamov, cook's helper in Montgomery. Leave of absence, Brooke Fisher, 6th grade teacher in Montgomery. Change in hours, Carson, a cook's helper at the high school. Under contracts, work agreements, and work policy, we have Director of Business Services, School Nurse Personnel Lead, which would be less than a 4-year degree, a School Nurse Personnel, and a School Nurse Personnel, a School Health Aide, Community Education Kids Zone, Youth Enrichment Coordinator, Community Education ECFE Administrative Assistant, Community Education Coordinator, Community Education Early Learning Coordinator, Community Education Kids Zone Staff, Kids Zone Step Schedule, the Community Education ECFE School Readiness Licensed Staff and Paraprofessional, ECFE School Readiness Teachers and Para Schedule, and also Letter of Agreement, a Kids Zone, and Letter of Agreement for ECFE. And we'll also have the approval in the bills of the amount of $729,670.57, and also our finance report. I will seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion.
Second.
Yep.
Members of the board, just a little overview on our number of contracts and working agreements. The vast majority of these working agreements are individual working agreements, such as our Director of Business Services, each of these nurse, school health aide, the coordinator, administrative assistant, community ed coordinator, community ed early learning coordinator. So those are all individual working agreements and staying within the budgeted areas for each of the funds. Group working agreements here would be with our Kids Zone staff and then also with our school readiness licensed staff, paraprofessionals, and teachers and para schedule all fits with this contract, as well as the Kids Zone step schedule fits with Kids Zone staff. One of the things is they moved to steps this year versus just percentage increases to be able to band things together. Within all of these contracts, these areas here would be within Fund 1, or the general fund. These areas here are all in Fund 4, which is the community education funds. So I just wanted to add those pieces of clarification and information.
Perfect, thank you. I have a motion on the floor by Kevin Huber, second by Michelle Borchert, to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Next, we have our Titan Pride Awards.
Wonderful. Mr. Grensteiner, would you like to come on up?
Dr. Pricer, members of the board, thanks for having me here this evening. We've got a Titan Pride Award here. Tanya, would you come forward, please? So I'm just going to say a few words, and if you wouldn't mind, just stay right here. All right. So Tanya is a fourth grade teacher at TCU Lee Center, and we'd like to recognize you this evening for your outstanding achievement as an educator here at TCU. For a number of years, you've been a very strong PBIS team member. Each day you work so positively with our students. And as their teacher and within the PBIS program, you have been a key component in helping our culture be what it is today. And whether it's the behind the scenes work, the decorating of the school, the organizing, the just making people feel good about where they are and what they do, including, of course, the students. You truly have a whole child mentality, and it's not good enough just to be great as an academic teacher, but you want to make sure you meet their social emotional needs as well. And I would define you as someone who just truly builds deep personal relationships with students and families. And if you saw the Facebook page today, at TCU Lee Center, you would see a video that she created about her fourth grade class and how the year's gone so far. And if you want to see what Tanya's all about, just watch the video, and that'll make sense. And your work in personalized learning and moving that forward within our school, you as well as a number of other educators have really taken that by storm, and really what's best for each kid, when do they need it, and how will I get it to them, has really been what Tanya has done. And just as a mentor as well for student teachers, grad fellows alike, just couldn't ask for a better educator, model teacher in our school. So with that, I'd like to award the Titan Pride Award to Mrs. Tanya Blohm.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Tanya. Very much.
You can sit. Okay. Well, members of the board and to our public, I'm going to be awarding some Titan Prides tonight. You know, about a month or so ago, I have a Twitter account, and one of the things I tweeted was, you know, there's one thing to be in a school district that talks about doing things, and it's another to be in a school district that does things. And this was an example of just not talking about something, but making it happen. So I'd like to, Jean Kopp and Tiffany Crabb, come on up, please. To take a statement that Mark Prising says to me often is, you know, it's always one thing to have an idea, but can you get it done, you know? Well, Jean and Tiffany were key at getting things done. as we were exploring some ideas about how can we do something different with uniting our staff and getting them to know one another on a different level, and reaching out and really connecting with our communities. And began to throw out this idea of what if we took all 308 of our employees, mixed them all up, got them on some buses, went to La Center, Montgomery, and Lonsdale, had them go out and meet some businesses, and what do you think? Think we could do that? Oh, everyone, that's a great idea. And it wasn't until Jean at one point said, so who's going to make this happen? And we went, yeah, this is a big undertaking. Brian and Mark both helped out, but I have to admit, the heavy lifting came from Jean and Tiffany with the organizing, and it went without a hitch. And it was the greatest example of a field trip as there could be. And I felt like the classroom teacher going, please, let's make sure we get everyone back. And we did. So Tiffany and Jean, a Titan Pride for your above and beyond coordination of the TCU staff. Titans are coming to town event to build upon our unity and our community engagement. You certainly went above and beyond, and it made a difference. Thank you both.
Nice job, Tiff. It was a lot of fun too.
Awesome job.
And then Claire. Awesome. Thank you.
It was fun, yeah.
Thank you, Tiff, very, very much.
All right, next we have our open forum, and at this time, we welcome the community to come in and speak in front of the board. And actually tonight we have Liz Krochak here and Maggie Grimm here to speak on behalf of the Montgomery Community Foundation.
Dr. Preisler, members of the board, thanks for letting us speak to you tonight. Before I get started about the foundation, so don't start my 2 minutes yet, I am a new employee and newly on staff at TCU. I work in food service in the K-8 building here in Montgomery, and I have a hairnet story for you. Last Friday, as I'm checking kids out at breakfast, this little third grade girl says to me, how come you're not wearing your hairnet? And I said, well, I just walked in the building, and I'll check you all out for breakfast. And then when I'm done, when I go in the kitchen, I have to put my hairnet on, and then I keep it on for the rest of the day, she said. Well, you know, you should really leave it on all the time. And I said, why is that? She said, well, when you don't have it on, your hair is kind of messy. Well, the kids are awesome. They keep me in check. But I'm here today with Bring Your Daughter to the Board meeting. Maggie and I serve on the newly founded Montgomery Community Foundation. It's brand new. We've just officially formed under the umbrella of the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, which has a partnership with the district already. They've issued grants for early childhood programming and school readiness, so you're familiar with SMIF. But they also support 28 community foundations in southern Minnesota, and Montgomery is number 28. So our goal is to collect donations and dollars and then give the money away. It's a volunteer board, and we hope to fund projects that are outside of what city government can budget for and fund, and outside of what school district can budget for and fund. Smith does the advertising, or helps with advertising and marketing and branding, and we get to collect donations. They believe that there is a large turnover in revenue in the next 10 years, and we would like the foundation to be a place where people can contribute dollars. And we will hear grant proposals and give money away. So it's kind of exciting. We've made contact with 19 or 20 service groups in the greater Montgomery area to invite them to our launch, which is Thursday, October 25th at 6:30 at Hilltop Hall. It's a Bright Ideas workshop. We want to hear what's good about Montgomery and the area and what programs need to be funded. We will have $5,000 in grant money to issue that night, or to hear proposals, and then the board will vote on which project we will fund first. We hope to build a nice endowment fund. We'll be passing the plate. We hope to build a nice endowment fund and a general fund, and there are some matching dollar opportunities in the first year of the foundation to build a sizable endowment fund. All the money that comes into this foundation stays here. There are no administrative fees out of the capital dollars that we raise. So we would ask the board if you could send a representative on October 25th to our Bright Ideas workshop, so we can hear what school projects you think would be worthy of support from the foundation. So, do we have flyers for the board? Oh, good. Thank you. And I know you can't ask me questions, but I'll stand outside if anybody needs to write me a check. But thank you for the opportunity to share this exciting news, and we hope it's just really great for the Montgomery area and greater Montgomery area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we have informational items, and first up is the TCU High School Building Project Bid Recommendation. Dave Maroney, he's here.
Yes, we have Dave here who's going to share some information and overview for the bid process. The bids were opened on Thursday. We did have a pre-award bid meeting on Friday, and pending upon board action later on in this meeting, terminations of contracts and beginning and possibly start date of construction October 1. Welcome back, Dave.
It's nice to be back. Remember what we said last time? Even if the bids didn't come in good, we'd still all be happy, right?
That's what you're leading with?
That's what he's leading with.
We'll wait for, it should pop up here in a second. Well, there's no reason not to be happy because the bids came in good. But just in case. Okay. Let's start this up.
Wait a minute, what's going on?
Okay, so we're here to talk about the high school. Okay, we've been all working on that, and we received the bids on that last Thursday, and I believe they came in favorable. We had a good pre-award meeting with a contractor who it seemed to go very well, and they've got a very good team in place, and they're excited to start on the project. So we're excited for tonight because you guys can award it tonight. But let's look and see what's been happening. Remember this? This is the review and comment. This is the big idea, okay, that we all had as a group and a community, and this is what we were doing. Question 1, question 2, the auditorium, the classroom additions. At that time, we had, try to get this here, we had some more remodeling in here. We had a different idea. We were building an extra classroom. You know, this was back in September. Oh goodness, almost a year ago.
God, that's crazy.
Isn't that fun? This is when we were putting the estimates together. So basically, this was the big idea. Proposed capacity of 675 students for the building. This was something that it looked like on May, and actually what we did was we left a perfectly good classroom in place, and because remember this was in that time frame where we were seeing some inflationary escalation and we needed to do something. And one of the things that we did was we left a good classroom as is instead of renovating it, and we were basically left that classroom and figured out a different way to handle lockers and the alignment of the building. And I think it's superior because we're able to keep all the windows in place, and we're able to build one less new classroom to displace the one that we were going to take away. So we got the same amount of classrooms, same capacity, no change, but this was the big idea. So this was in May, and so since then we've received some bids on the project. We received 2 bids. The look on Terry's face when I walked in that day, she goes, "Dave, we have 2 bids." I said, "Well, good."
And then you said, "Do you want to check your mail?"
Yeah, why don't you go check the mail just in case? And she goes, "I did already." And I noticed, because I got there just in time, that there were no people hanging around in the hallway or anything. So we had 2 bids. So I promptly said, "Hey, back in 2003, when we bid Marshall High School, we had 2 bids." Okay? Just all depends on what's inside those bids. Okay? So we had 2 bids. We did receive, and there were 2 complete bids, so that was good, so we could weigh them against one another. We did have an internal team meeting, and we evaluated the alternates. We had quite a list of alternate possibilities to continue the project, to kind of complete some of the pieces of the project, to have better materials or little more scope of the project. We did arrive at kind of a recommendation of that. We did conduct a pre-award meeting, like I talked about, the next day with the contractor. And we've put together a recommendation, which I believe you have in your board packets. Letter from myself, which is a little version of it right here, but yours is probably easier to read. So this is what the bid tab looks like, which is also attached to the recommendation. Like we said, there's two bidders, Ebert Construction and Metcon Construction. And so this is the first one we opened, which was $12,088,000. The next one we opened was $10,699,000. When I heard the 10 to start the number, I was pretty excited because that's kind of what we thought it should be. This was our base bid. Well, this was the base bid, which is what the bid was open. The review and comment estimate that we did back in September or so of last year was $10.9 million. So at that point, I thought, great. Not only do we have a complete project, but it's below the original estimate. And we did have that updated estimate in place, though, based on various things that we were actually doing, some of the innovative classroom designs in the classroom area, the inflation index that we were anticipating. I would have been perfectly happy, because these were the numbers we were using, up to 11.7, to be honest with you, with the bid opening. So actually, even though this one was higher and it was in the 12s, and it would have been better at being the 11s, it wasn't that far away either. So it was a good day. So we do ask the contractor to give us all sorts of price options for different things, like the thicker, the roof, the 30-year roof instead of the 20-year roof. We've talked about that before. Different things like an acoustical shell, which basically completes the acoustical considerations for the auditorium function, for your band and orchestra, your choir concerts, that type of thing. It's a nice thing. Some of the ones we toured had it. Some of the ones we toured wished they would have it. We put it as an alternate bid. We even had some competition for that from a manufacturer in Texas, so that was good. We looked at some flooring finishes. We looked at some additional theater lighting. We looked at various things here. So contractors were so gracious to give us all of these different price options, which then we were able to kind of evaluate with the internal team and go through and see where the real priorities were. Thought we'd give you a little glimpse of kind of what the contractors look at when they're bidding this, kind of like we did at Lonsdale. This is what's called a sequencing plan. This is in the contract document, so it has all the critical dates, when they can start things, when they can disrupt this wall, for instance, back by the athletic area. That's a summer job. It's not something they're going to start right now. Okay, so in other words, the students are going to be able to continue to use this all year. We have things like diagrams showing safe exiting out of the building, in and out of the building. We have areas where the construction fences are suggested right now for these two areas of construction, including the courtyard area. The idea of accessing this from the cul-de-sac is something that we put in the addendum. It was something that was brought up at the pre-bid. They said, hey, last time we did the project here, we had a road connection there. It was really good to keep the trucks and access away from the students. So we went ahead and put that into that. And
We did receive approval of that today.
Received approval of that today from the city. And so all systems are go there. It just makes a lot of sense. It's one of the reasons we have our pre-bid, get all the minds in the room and let people talk about it. And that's where the contractors can really actively engage with the design team and the owner and say, it would be very helpful if we could do this or that, and we listen. So some things get incorporated, some things don't get incorporated. That happened too. So basically we've got all of these safe things identified. So we want to make sure we can still occupy the school while we're building not only the classroom wing, but also the auditorium. So this has all been worked out. It's all in here. You see these numbers all over. That's all tied into the sequence, start and stop dates, start the activity, complete the activity. So we don't claim that we're scheduling the work because we can't. That's up to the contractor, but we guide them with this tool. This is a plan now of what the high school is going to become, and you can see the white area that's existing, and the shaded areas are shaded for a couple of reasons. A, they're the additions, but B, they're the first alternate that we recommended accepting tonight. And that would be additional $35,000 for all this gray area you see, turns that into a 30-year, 90 mil fully adhered roof system. So that's the first alternate that we were recommending here. So you can see that by the gray. The next one, or the kind of coupled these together, acoustic shell and the orchestra pit filler, alternate bid 2 and 3. You can see that identified here. It's really backstage components, 2 ceiling elements that can fly up into the fly loft, or they can come down and turn, and then they become the ceiling, if you will. Instead of like a little backdrop you might see where it's a flat thing and they might tip up a little deal around the edge. That's how my kids, perform. Okay, which could work. But what we've got here is we've got a ceiling element that actually, I'm not going to say seals up, but for the most part it really does kind of seal up that cavern of the fly loft. And then around the back perimeter, there's walls. They're called towers, and they fold out and they become a kind of a scalloped wall, and it really makes the auditorium look like it's one room with the stage. Those are going to be plastic laminate. They can look like the wood in the auditorium, or they could be some complementary color. That's down the road when we'll pick that. But essentially, that's the backstage component. I mentioned that the ceiling elements are lit, so that when the performers are on there, they can actually read their sheet music because it is lit, and you don't have to readjust your theater lights to try to get proper lighting for that. The little bit out in front here, that's where that open orchestra pit is. Remember we talked about the orchestra pit being down below, and the stage projects out, and then there's about a 6-7 foot gap, and that's where where it would be open if we didn't fill it in with this pit filler. So that's alternate bid number 3, orchestra pit filler. Both of these products are Wenger products, which are made in Owatonna, so relatively local. The next items here I've coupled up are some electrical items, alternate bids 5 and 8 and 14. So when we look at this blue color, what we're talking about is some additional theater lighting. It was the desire, we do have all LED lights, theater lights in this. I think it might be the first auditorium we've designed that actually has that. So that's pretty exciting. Super energy efficient, long lasting, low heat, just the list of benefits just keep piling up. But the desire from the team was to have some specialty lights, a little more animated, a little more electronically controlled lights. But again, those are very expensive. And $8,000 per light. But it adds a certain component to the auditorium that is pretty amazing. So let's do it as an alternate. So that is identified here, some additional theater lighting, and it's about it is $30,000 for that alternate. Good value. Ran these by our electrical engineer. The lighting designers said, yes, that's a good value for that. The auditorium wall lights, this occurs, so basically those are in the theater lights, the first one. The wall lights really wrap around the walls, and we saw one auditorium, maybe 2 auditoriums, I guess Minnetonka had it, Cass and Manorville had it, and they're these feature lights which can be, you can it's one of those things where they say there's millions of colors. They're LEDs again, and so that you can start to set a little mood or create a certain ambiance. Cass and Manorville, I think they had their school color. I think Minnetonka does it a lot too, but they can also do like Legally Blonde. They turn pink, and it was like part of the feeling of the event. So we went ahead and said, well, that's good to have that. Is it essential? Well, it completes it, but it isn't critical. So what didn't make the base bid, it makes the alternate. So for $6,000 to get accent lights that are fully controlled like that and integrated in with the system, very good value. So get on the list. The last electrical item is alternate bid 14, and that's the entertainment company stage power. That's located right back here. And what this is a direct connection for traveling theater groups, stage groups, performing groups, where they can tap their power into the system and they don't have to, well, it's just the right way to do it. Let me just put it that way. And again, we did this alternate at Marshall also, and it was upwards on $25,000 to $30,000. Super good value. Okay? So that allows your auditorium now to be much more user-friendly for any traveling shows or events that might come. It's something that they really look for. Get back into here, this red one here, the rooftop mechanical screen, unit screen alternate. There's actually two mechanical rooms, or excuse me, two mechanical units, which are rooftop units. So this one sits over the roof of the classroom area. This one sits over the higher roof of the ag lab. So being a good neighbor like you are, it's always a good idea to screen things. Yeah, there's a lot of trees and things, but I think it's a real positive thing. And what this is an integrated mechanical screen to the unit. It isn't dependent on the roof. It doesn't affect the roofing at all. It's basically part of the mechanical unit, and it creates a much more pleasant view of a mechanical unit. Now, some people like mechanical units and all the little things and the gadgets and the signage and the warning things on them and all that stuff. Some people don't. Okay, so one critical view line here is really from the kind of the heart of your building, media center, and this whole area here, this glass wall looking out across here. I think there's a positive element of these screens from that perspective too. So not only does it help be friendly to the neighbors, it helps to be friendly to yourself. So I think that it's certainly something our mechanical engineers put in. Again, we're going to go back to, is it absolutely critical? Does the city absolutely require it based on the screening that's already in place? No, but now's the time to do it. You're never going to do it in the future for that price either. The next big item here would be the sliding wall panel system. Now, when I say it's a big item, it really isn't that big. It's this one area. It's in these two classrooms, which are right next to the ag lab. The base bid has a folding paired panel partition, not unlike the ones between the classrooms here. That was the base bid. It's a marker board wall. Yes, it's flexible. But is it innovative or anything like that? Not necessarily, in the same degree that we talked about these opening walls for these classrooms and these learning stations being able to fully open up. Well, this is a different type of a wall, which we saw on a couple of the tours. It was at a couple of different locations, and it's basically a translucent, totally agile, movable idea wall. And it's something that the teams that saw them thought, this is innovation. And this is like the next level, the next generation. The students draw on them, write on them, they use them for spatial dividers. It doesn't affect the daylight coming into this interior classroom. It defines the space, but it doesn't like permanently block the space. So it's just different. Well, it's a $17,000 alternate, and in the spirit of innovation and flexible teaching environments, especially being this is designated as a Project Lead the Way lab, it seemed like the right thing to do. I'm going to skip over the auditorium wall masonry veneer one, even though we've recommended it for acceptance. I'm going to show you some images on the next slide. There were a couple of things here that originally set out its life as a long-term facility maintenance or deferred maintenance type of project. The chiller that's there is, Carl, is it 20 years old?
20 years old, yes.
It's 20 years old. Not that it's going to fail immediately, but it's not a spring chicken anymore.
It's running on one stage.
And it's failing. Okay, fine. But basically that powers up most of the building. It chills most of the building, if you will. So, I mean, is that really part of this project? No, because it's existing. There's some what are called DX units, which are kind of like big versions of what you might have for your house. You know, the thing that sits out with the fan and makes noise, does its job. But we've got those components here in the existing building also. So our mechanical engineers, working with the district, looked at ways of kind of killing two birds with one stone. Is that a good way to put it? Maybe. We need extra cooling capacity, chiller capacity for the auditorium and for the classrooms. You've got a failing unit. Instead of just adding another one and then replacing the old one, maybe what we should do is get a bigger one. Still a single one, a bigger one. And at the same time, it would be awesome if we could tie that system into these DX units, which are really not that energy efficient, and add basically a chilled water cooling coil to some, it's all a bunch of mechanical stuff, okay? Carl loves it. Our mechanical engineers love it. But basically, it was something we thought, okay, let's do that as a separate project. That's how its life was rolling along, kind of a deferred maintenance project. But at the pre-bid, talking to the bidders and ourselves and our mechanical engineer, we thought, let's just see if we can get the value in the bid and see where the bids end up. So those two in purple, the chilled water cooling coils, that's to basically make some existing areas of the existing building more energy efficient, tied in with the centralized system, and then of course the centralized air-cooled chiller system. We received the bids on that. They are good value bids. The recommendation is to put that into the project. Okay? So, we're making this building more efficient and giving it a longer life for that whole system in doing this project. Was that part of the referendum? Well, part of the air-cooled chiller would have been, maybe we could have just put a smaller one there, but that would have been more costly. So it all makes sense to work together on, especially if the funds are available. So what we're ultimately doing is adding up to a certain amount here. Before we do that, I want to share with you the Masonry Veneer. What we had in the base bid in the auditorium was basically something similar to what Marshall had, Marshall High School, one of the tours that we went on. It's a burnished, kind of a colored concrete block that has a finish on it and kind of a textured block. And that was the baseline approach to the auditorium. It did acoustics what we needed it to, and it was good, durable maintenance. There was some discussion about having more of a natural look instead of this kind of concrete block look. So what we did was we created an alternate bid for the Masonry Veneer. I don't know if that piece of masonry is in here or not.
Yeah, it's over by Brenda.
Probably is. Okay. So basically what we're talking about is everywhere that the burnished masonry was, like on the walls below the wood band, the high-low from the flatter floor, the main floor to those side balconies that we've got, the raised tiered seats, those walls, the stage apron we call it, that, and these arrows are pointing backwards because the rear walls would be this material. So anything down where people can touch it and be at it and kind of hit it and stuff like that, you like to have good durable materials. So you see different views of this material here on these exposed surfaces, right here and here. Right around the stage is it's a different material. It's a porcelain tile material, kind of like in the theme of the building. You've got some of your real important areas of the building with this porcelain tile on it. And that's what we're framing the stage with on each side. And then over the top, it's basically this, it's kind of like a vinyl, but it's a different kind of a film. It's something that our interiors people really recommend we use on things like this. It makes it look like a large, cohesive piece, and it's got some neat coloration and texture to it. So this is, like really first class. This was going to be really nice with the base bid, kind of a rusticated stone and kind of some bands in it and stuff. But this option to do the stone wherever, there it is, right there. And that, there's different colors, there's different things. This has kind of a variegated texture or coloration to it, so it looks a little more natural. It's not real stone, it's a synthetic stone, but it's really super durable and super, I don't know, when they make this stuff, it's like, hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure, trying to recreate what the big guy does. Okay. But it's man-made. So anyway, I think it looks amazing. And it's like, for $14,000 to cover all those surfaces, to be honest with you, I'm shocked. And I think we should do it. And it's going to make our auditorium look amazing. I mean, again, this is the time to do it. So, what does all that mean? If we, look, the base bid is at 10.7 million. This was the review and comment estimate. We were actually planning on this amount budgetarily. We did some reductions in that one classroom. We really just tried to work hard all the way through here to make this really efficient. And same thing when we talked about Lonsdale and we consolidated the two additions into one, and we, all that kind of stuff. It's been paying dividends, those economies, and kind of that practical design. If we add up all the alternates and everything here, and those extensions of the LTFM components, we're at 11.345. We're below this estimate that we've been planning on having. And so it leaves a little bit of money in the bank for the next couple of projects that we're doing, which is, I don't know, pretty exciting. So that's where we are with it. That's the recommendation that the administrative team has put together. So it's basically all of these alternates we'd recommend accepting and moving forward with this project. This is what we've been up to, the journey we've been on since the referendum in February. We're hitting the dates. We're going to begin October 1st, assuming you guys award this tonight. The first completion is really for the classrooms and the labs, in the southern portion of the building. August 15th is the completion date for that, ready for students for the next school year, the 1920 school year. And the auditorium is going to extend on to November 1st and have that complete November 1st, 2019. Ready for the holiday season and the future. So that's what we're doing. Any questions?
I just can't wait for it to be done.
I know.
See all
I
that
can't wait
fun
for it to
stuff.
start.
I know.
It is pretty incredible to be able to include some of those areas of alternates that, as our staff was involved with the site visits and the design planning, there were, like, say, for example, that the partition wall that Dave referenced for the PLTW, Mr. John Head was intricately involved with that, and it's like, well, I suppose the other would work, but if we're really going to be about using this whole space and being able to visually see when, the whole area, and Team Teach said, this really is the route. And, those were just an example of some of the discussions that have gone on. Dale joined in at the bid opening. I don't know if there's any comments or things you want to add or share in the dialogues. Or
I thought a couple of things that Dave pointed out to us is, as far as the acoustic part of the auditorium from Wanger, great people to work with, and as he told the group of people that were there, rarely does anything go wrong with that company. I mean, and they back things if something would, and I think for that added dollar value, it will truly make that auditorium acoustically sound. St. Peter, I believe, does not have that. I have attended, a couple different events as far as programs there, and you can tell that it's missing, and this will really project those voices and things out to our community. And I just, I'm happy that Dave, And I think the other part is, as Davis said, being able to put those chillers in and make it a part of the project, so we still have our long-term facility dollars available to us. Yes, we're getting new buildings, but we got lots of other building portions that we have to keep our eyes on as well. So that I think was probably what stood out to me that day that we looked at these.
Any other questions or comments for Dave? All right. He probably will not be here for the action item piece unless you're going to stay for quite a while. We've got some assessment reports I doubt you want to sit through.
No, that's fine, I trust you guys. Let me know if something comes up, because we won't issue the contract tomorrow. But we do need your authority to do that. The next thing that we're going to be discussing here we're going to be issuing bid documents for Montgomery, the early childhood portion of the referendum, October 2nd. Be bidding that November 1st. And starting construction on the addition that's in that little area, the outside component, April 1st. And then we'll start to do all the remodeling in the interior in the summertime. So that's kind of exciting too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one, if I would have had time to type over there, it would have said the center. And the secure entry, the administration area, and the HVAC work that's going to be done there is going to be following on the heels of this shortly. Okay?
All right.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, David.
Thank
I
you.
think Brenda has some other contracts for you then too.
Oh, okay.
From the Lonsdale project.
Great. Have a wonderful evening.
You also. All right, next we'll move on to our district assessment coordinator report. We have Molly Meyer and Superintendent Breisler here today.
Yeah, you know, Molly, I think I'll come join you over there, okay?
Oh, perfect. That sounds excellent.
Thank you.
I know.
Super.
You can see it's really
Go for it. Start us off here. I'll get them opened up.
Well, Board, Superintendent Preisler, community, we wanted to take this opportunity to review with you a district perspective of the data, our data picture for our students here at Tri-City United this year. And so we'll be reviewing with you different sorts of data. So our FAST data, which is our progress monitoring and our benchmarks for learning throughout the year. And then we also have our Minnesota State MDE data as well. So our MCAs and WIDA access assessments, and we'll also be talking a little bit about ACT. So Dr. Preisler will get us started, just grounding us in with some demographics that helps our lens as we look at our data.
Yeah. This is the same patterning that I've shared each year so that we get a feel for our demographics and our comparative to the state. One of the things, I'm not going to read through each one of these, but one of the things of note is that we are finding as a district we're becoming more diverse, which is, as in one of my interviews with the newspaper reporter, is a gift. We really do mirror the state in our demographics here, and that's a gift of diversity and the opportunity to really grow and be together. So we are finding more diversity within our race ethnicity. We are also seeing a slight climb in our special education percentages, but again, mirroring the state. Our English language learner is very close to the state. And again, free and reduced meals. As you can tell, that's taken a jump in the last year for those who qualify for that meal benefit. Again, mirroring where the state is. Then we have a breakdown by each of our sites. The pieces that I think that jumped out to me was, again, as a district, we've grown within our educational meal benefits percentage, but at each site we did as well. So it's not a preponderance at one. Every one of our sites is increasing in that socioeconomic aspect. We find that our special education has held fairly steady at the high school, is a significant jump at Tri-City United La Center, and again, fairly steady here at Montgomery, and a bit of a decline at Lonsdale. And again, then within our race ethnicity, one of the pieces that is striking me in particular, as we knew as a whole, we were becoming more diverse, But we're also seeing that really across the board, pretty close in each of our sites. High school has a little bit of a flatness there. So moving into state and local results. Molly, I'll let you take it away with the FAST.
So FAST is, as I said, our sort of progress monitoring and benchmark tool that we use as a screening measure to predict future outcomes for kiddos in our district. And so the graphs and data that you're looking at is K-8 and does encompass all of our sites. And so what you're looking at here is A math, and you're just looking at the growth from the fall to spring, so fall of last year to spring of this year. And we did notice that we had a little bit of an increase here in high risk, decreasing some risk, but we are growing in our low risk and college pathway. So low risk, that category falls around the benchmark, the target that we would anticipate for students to be at by within their benchmark window. And college pathway is the percent of students achieving 80% or higher on that assessment. And so that's sort of what determines that. When you viewed the spreadsheet or the table document earlier, several board meetings ago, students achieving above benchmark were comprised of both the low risk and the college pathway categories, as those categories both indicate students that are achieving at or above grade level. As we look at that A math score for students across the district, we broke it down a little bit by different demographic groups. And so you can see over here, English learners, the English learners who took the math assessment, 53% of them were achieving at proficiency, and the students who are non-English learners were achieving at 89%. And so you can kind of scan the chart here and look at those different values. And our PLCs are taking time to really unpack those achievement gaps and opportunity gaps and identify how and how we can best address the needs of all of our students. And so one thing I think worth pointing out is that we don't have a wide variety of discrepancy within the categories. And so as we look at some data a little bit later on, you'll see ways in which our teachers have worked very successfully to help close some achievement gaps in our district. So that's a proud point to talk to. Our A reading assessment, again, similar chart here. We're seeing that our college pathway declined a little bit and our low risk and increased a little bit, but our some risk increased as well. And so just kind of wondering about these kiddos and what happened to their score. We do know that in the spring, as the kiddos get older, they're also taking MCA tests and COGAT assessments and lots of other things. And so they kind of get tested out in the spring as well, which is one variable. But overall, our kiddos are performing at high levels in large numbers. So here are some of the breakdowns by demographics as well. And females in reading are achieving at 90%, males at 85%, which is quite close, and a higher or closer rate than what statistics nationwide might consider. Typically, males perform a little bit lower in reading overall across the nation. Here's reading CBM. So this is more of a fluency assessment rather than a skills-based assessment. And so overall, our fluency is increasing by the end of the year. We're not performing at a very, very high level in terms of fluency as a district, but it is improving. And a lot of that comes from the foundational skills that we see in A reading. So as those A reading skills start to solidify and become brainstem functioning, we will see an increase in fluency. And so you just want to make sure that you're getting those reading skills and comprehension skills that will help aid in that fluency. And we have a lot of targeted services and specific research-based interventions that help to increase that. So here are some proficiency comparisons as well.
All right. We had a little bit of an overview of the ACT assessments at a previous meeting where Mr. Fitter shared the results. I'm going to dig in just a little bit further for you to see, and as you maybe recall from the what Alan shared, we did see improvements and increases in our ACT assessments this last year, and that's going to hold true here. So what I've taken is our, they have the college ready benchmark, and that is set by ACT. And it is broken out by English, math, reading, and science. And within this graph, you'll see our race ethnicity within English math. This is in 2016, and these would be, blue would be all juniors. The orange is white, white race ethnicity, and the gray would be our Latino or Hispanic population. So as we look from going from 16 to 17 to 18, one of the encouraging pieces is that not only did our whole group, but we also see within subgroups significant growth and improvement within our race ethnicity in English. We see that as well in math, not quite as big of a jump within our Hispanic population, but we do see a good growth within our all area. This is then science and math, again, going same legend here and everything. Going from 16 to 17 to really quite a significant jump here in 2018, in particular as we see within our white and our Hispanic populations. And then in science as well, you can see a year ago we did not have any of our students from our Hispanic population that met the college readiness scale, and this year we did. So again, we're at least seeing the improvements and growth by each subgroup within this area. And then we do dig into that within special services. But for this, I have mainly our race and ethnicity. Because the challenge within our special services is in some areas it's such a small number that for us to report it could be some data violations there as well. This gives us by gender. I found that interesting to be able to notice our male-female and see if we see any patterning there. Again, this is just 2 worths, and it's each course. We have English from 17 to English 18. Males in the blue, females in the orange. Quite a jump with our males. Math, again, large jump within the gender of males, but even our females had a good jump there as well. Reading, both had large growth, and science, a little bit larger growth, or growth within both, but a little bit larger within our males. MCAs. I'm going to before going too deeply into any one graph, I'm going to kind of go through as a whole and then share out with you some of the areas of strength and the areas that we'll need to be taking a deeper dive in. Within our reading, this would be our comparative to the state across each of our grade levels. It's a snapshot. It's all of our district. We do not, at this point, dig into schools, even though each one of our schools has been doing that already. And what we've typically seen is we hold fairly steady with the state. We have seen some patterning within 7th grade. Interestingly, within our data summit, some of the facilitators we had brought some data from other districts and looking at it a different way. And interestingly, districts of similar demographics as us, our 7th and 8th are really quite strong compared to those. So even though we're not quite showing that in this area within that comparative, it really was very strong. So we take a look at reading over time from 2014. Again, each of these is, and this is all grades, so TCU, state of Minnesota, you can see that we've held fairly steady. No big jumps, no big drops, and that's kind of what we've seen with reading in the past. And so continuing on to where some rigor is that we can get over that hump. Our grade 3, again, this is over time. TCU and the state, gives you a chance to see where our patterning has been. Grade 4, again, held fairly steady in the comparatives. Grade 5 has a slight of an increase this year, catching up a little bit more with the state in that time. Grade 6 had an increase as well, recognizing that these are different students. So if you want to ever do comparative, we take from one grade to the past grade. And so these students as 5th graders are at 62.9% and this year at 59.5%. Really holding fairly steady within those percentages, no big drops, which we have sometimes seen in the past. And then 7th grade, again, A little bit lower here, if we take a look at these students as sixth graders, 45.8 was at a 56.4. That is when we had a little bit more, bigger dip than what we would want to see. Eighth grade, again, held fairly steady to the year before, and holding, when you take a look at this group of students, 56.5 as eighth graders, back here as seventh graders, here at 51. So some growth there as well, which is what we like to see. And then within our 10th grade, had a little bit of a dip this year as compared to the state. Within math, again, the snapshot, one thing that we have shared in the past is that our math does seem to have a little more valleys and hills. We'd like to see more on the hills, and so needing to take a look within this area in particular, because when we did do our math curriculum review, our 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th did not change their resources at that point. And so coming back in to take a look if we are at the rigor we need to be. Here would be over time as all grades. Here, having a little bit of a dip this year. Grade 3 has held really very steady through each year. This is a grade level that we did have new curricular resources when we purchased those, and 4th grade as well. The slight dip here, and from the year before, really some drops there as well. In our 5th grade, we see a little bit of an increase from the year before, and at 6th grade, had a bit of a drop. 7th grade has quite a drop. This is probably, we've had some larger grade levels come through. This last year's 7th into this year's 8th grade is our probably our smallest that we have. And they're at around 121 students, whereas otherwise we range in that 150. And so sometimes when you do have a little bit of a smaller number, you see a little bit more fluctuation, but certainly not putting on that as the reason. And then within our 8th grade, again, we've got that up and down happening. 11th grade, it was good to see an increase there, and bringing us to science. So it'd be our 5th, 8th, and high school. So recall, high school is not by a certain grade level. It's kind of based off of biology. Sometimes you have students that vary in grade levels in that, but typically it would be your 10th grade biology students. And we have held above the state in each one of those grade levels. And as we look at 5th grade over time, it's really been nice to see in these last couple of years the significant improvements that we have had. 8th grade has really had some jumps in the last couple of years. And our high school, as we remember last year, was a significant increase and held pretty close, but a little bit of a dip. WIDA.
So WIDA access assessments are the assessments that we give our English learners at the state level. And so you're just looking at the graph here over time for all of our kiddos K-12 that have participated in that assessment. And so the blue bar is 2015-16, red is 2016-17, and yellow is 2017-18. These achievement categories down here go from entering, so students who are just learning to speak the language, all the way up to students who are bridging and speaking and understanding English fluently. And so you can see that across the years in general, we have varying levels of achievement. Our expanding population is increasing there, and so is our emerging. But as we look a little bit closer to students within this population who have been with us for the last 3 years, so the access testing changed 3 years ago to its second version. And so if we track the students that have been with us in the district for those 3 years, we can see here that we are making a big impact. It's very promising, yes. And so our students here who are at the entering level who have been with us, that entering level is decreasing, and so that means that those students are moving up in their levels, and we're seeing that expanding language proficiency level here quite large. So we're really proud of the work that our teachers and students are engaging in and staying consistent over time and increasing that student learning.
As shared within the my last couple of weeks' reports, the You know, with this federal government move from No Child Left Behind to Every Student Succeeds Act, every state did need to resubmit their plan for identification within school districts. And the state of Minnesota has moved forward with a North Star accountability system. It includes 5 indicators, as you can see, and as I've shared before. It is still proficiency, MCA math, and MCA reading. They've also included progress toward English language proficiency, the progress or growth from one year to the next on the MCA math and the MCA reading. This indicator number 3 is only for elementary and middle schools. That is not within the high school because you don't have a yearly assessment for that growth comparative. And then graduation rates for 4-year, and they've also now added 7-year cohorts, as the state of Minnesota has really worked hard on that idea that, you know, yes, we want everyone graduating in 4 years, but we need to provide students opportunities if something has occurred that's not able to happen. And then finally, attendance. And within the attendance, the way in which that is measured is your percentage of students who are in attendance 90% of the days. So, really 1 and 3 kind of fit with what we've already looked at with MCAs, so I wanted to give us a little glimpse into some of the other indicators. And this is percent of English learners meeting target, which means that each student, based upon where their previous access and test was, they have a target benchmark to reach, and it kind of goes off of what Molly was just sharing within those WIDA assessments. And as a state, the percent meeting their targets is 48.5, and here as Tri-City United School District, we have 51.6. So we have more students with English language learning needs meeting their targets than where the state is at. And this is the first time that this has been a comparative for our state as part of the North Star. Within our 4-year graduation rate, we've tracked that for a while, and as you may recall, last year the graduation rate calculation changed. So most districts did see a decrease in their percentages. We usually had hung at that 93, 94, and with the new formula showed us at a 90.5, but again, still well beyond where the state is. And as we take a look at then in the 7-year, we've had a 95.4% as compared with the state at an 87%. And then again, the attendance, as I shared, that idea that if the student is attended more than 90% of the time that they are enrolled during the year. And as a state, that was at 85.6%, and as a district, 87.4%. We found that our elementary and middle schools are considerably high in our attendance, well over 90%. Our high school does take a bit of a dip there. So some pieces of achievements. As the state set the thresholds, all of our schools in every benchmark did meet the North Star threshold, so we did not have any school that was identified for targeted or comprehensive support by the state. We did have Tri-City United Lonsdale, who was recognized in 2 areas in the top 5% of the state, as we said earlier, math progress overall and special ed attendance. Then our grade 3 reading, they were at a 73%, grade 4 reading 74%, and then grade 3 math at an 82, and grade 4 math at an 86. TCU La Center's English learner progress was 17% higher than the state threshold, which is really a significant percentage above the state. The math progress of students who receive special education services were double in growth compared to other groups. So really showing some acceleration happening there. And their 8th grade results really were above the state in both math and reading. Some other highlights: TCU Montgomery 5th grade reading at the 72%, and then 7th and 8th grade mirroring the state percentage. Our math results at TCU Montgomery in grade 3 and 4 were both higher than the state, with grade 3 being up at a 71%. And in the North Star report, that reading progress was another area of strength for TCU Montgomery. Tri-City United High School's math proficiency increasing by 12%, as I shared that earlier, and then as well within our North Star report, graduation rates. And then science proficiency percentages being higher than the state in all 3 tested grade levels.
There were just a couple of things that I wanted to draw the board's attention to. Is just if you have any questions or need any supports, or families are looking for some item samplers or some, the MDE Perspective site is a site that students can go on with their student locator number and practice some of the skills that they will be seeing on the state assessments. And so I just wanted to let the school board know and our public know that those links are available on our district assessment coordinator website if students should choose to access them. I also did want to just briefly touch on a couple of new MDE assessment requirements. They're really just screening requirements, making sure that we have a district dyslexia screening plan as well as a convergence and sufficiency disorder screening. So really I-teaming, convergent disorder screening. Really what those amount to, the dyslexia screening plan will be using our FAST assessment as our foundation for that. And students who are at risk on our FAST assessment will all have uniform assessments for diagnostic testing to see in which areas of phonological awareness and phonics students might be struggling in, which are key indicators of dyslexia. We will not be providing dyslexia assessment, as that is done by a medical professional, but we will have screeners in there so that we can help inform parents when they may want to consider a medical diagnosis. We also will be looking for symptoms, if you will, or screening for symptoms of I-teaming dysfunction or convergence insufficiency disorder. And so really if we're noticing students having large numbers of migraines, a hard time reading close print, we'll be letting families know to go and seek a medical diagnosis for that.
We had a lot of stuff there.
It's a lot of information.
Exciting.
It is.
Some good things happening.
Yeah, I think our key is that we still need to get to a consistency. Consistency from across the district, consistency within year to year, but you know, that comes with the, again, continuing our path in our professional learning communities, and I do believe that some of the work with the operational strategic plan will be really critical to help that consistency, because that's one of the things we talked about is what are those absolute key strategies and teaching and learning aspects that really need to be mirrored in every single classroom. As shared with you know, in other pieces, it is good to see the state move to something beyond the adequate yearly progress aspect, but they do still think we have some work to do on really taking a look at what student learning is, so it's more, it goes beyond just those single tests, because you can say different ways of measuring, but when it's all based on the same assessment, it's just different ways of eating the pie instead of having a different pie, taking a look at the whole. So hopefully we can continue to grow in that, and also within the college and career readiness aspects that are so vital for our students.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you.
Next, we have start of the year highlights from our building principals. Molly, you might as well just.
I asked our principals to share a little bit on the start of the year, and in keeping with our theme on building on a strong foundation, some things that have happened strategy-wise or activity-wise within our schools that have built on our strong foundation that we have created.
Yeah, come on up.
TCU Lee Center, off to a good start. A couple of things that were highlights of the beginning of the school year. We had Mayor Frederickson come the first day of school and spoke for about 5 to 10 minutes to the students just about how the pride in your school can really flow into the pride of the community as well, and how that all works together, and how it feels in both places. If you have pride in one area, it can really ooze into the other areas. So that was really a nice thing. We also had local law enforcement there at school welcoming the students. It was just really a nice community feel the first day. Teachers decorated the hallways, the school looked beautiful. Just when you talk about respect for a school, we had streamers hanging in the hallways. We're going on to week 3, and not one was taken down or pulled down by a student or anything. It's just- they really felt proud about how their school looked, and they really treat it that way. Really talking a lot about what it means to be a scholar with all of our students, and whether you're a kindergartner or an 8th grader, what does it mean to be scholarly? What does it mean to be a learner? And that's really the focus of our students this year, identifying what is important to me, what am I good at, and what will I be good at through this process. And that's really been a big thing. So you'll hear teachers calling students scholars as opposed to kids or students or other things. So it's really, I think, a mindset shift of the adults in the building as well, but our students believing that too. Habits of mind, you've heard that. That is basically mental training, your mental process to be efficient, an efficient problem solver for today's world. And not just what you learn, but how you think and learn is really important, and how you train your brain to go through systems and processes in order to achieve an end. It's a really unique way of thinking, and our staff is really kind of biting into that. And that then is supposed to go to kids as well, and how they think. And then our staff meetings is really becoming best practice presentations by our experts within the building, focusing on an EL focus, as well as just kind of how do we get deeper into the work we're doing. We're doing the right work. It's now just how do we really get to the depths of it. And that's just been exciting. It's rejuvenating to be feeling good about what you've already done, but now how do we get really good at what we're doing? And it just takes time in a new district, and we're at that point now where we can, we're not building as much. It's more about, okay, use what you've got and get really good at it. And that's kind of our focus, and you may hear some similar things here. So we're off to a good start. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at TCU Lonsdale, the ways in which we're building on our strong foundation, our teachers are really grabbing on to universal design for learning, which I know that we have mentioned before. Kim Johnson-Harris, a professor from MSU, was able to join us for some work with Lonsdale teachers and some Center teachers already this year, and she's coming for a coaching day tomorrow. And so teachers are really gaining traction and utilizing that framework of universal design for learning. In conjunction with universal design for learning at Lonsdale, we're really diving deeper into our conversations about equity and what that means. And so we know that we can't do the work for personalization if we don't also have a collective language and understanding about what equity and what that means for our students at Lonsdale. And so we've been doing some work on that. We also are really excited about having all of our K-2 teachers and special ed staff trained in SMART, so stimulating maturity through accelerated readiness training. And I know that that is a program that has been in the district and has been utilized. But as we think about being stronger and being committed to something that we know is good for kids, we had some teachers that hadn't been through the training yet. And so we're really excited to see how our special ed staff is leveraging their new sensory space, which is a little bit bigger than last year's, and then how our gen ed population is utilizing our smart room. It's been really great.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent Preisler. We are off to a very great start at Montgomery, K-8. As Dr. Preisler mentioned, we have a construction theme within our building, which really goes along with, building stronger minds. And there's a lot of caution tape, and our teachers have really been thriving on that, on how we can build better students, not only academically, but also through our social emotional needs. That has been a really big focus that we've pushed this year. During workshop time, we had a mindfulness person come in to teach our staff about breathing and doing a little bit of yoga and going into the rooms and seeing teachers be able to do that with their students has really been powerful. The kids love it. Our counselors and social workers are actually going in and teaching some of those skills to our lower level students with the hope that it's going to begin trickling up. We are excited about AVID, and AVID has caught on not only in our 7th and 8th grade, but I have quite a few faculty members who want more information on these AVID strategies. If you walk through our commons area, the link, we had one teacher do a one-pager, which is a AVID strategy, and the kids were amazed at the projects the posters that they made, and our teachers are like, I want more information. I want to know how my kids can do something like that too. So just a lot of learning, a lot of excitement, and we're off to a great start.
Yeah, good evening. The high school, we are also off to what we think is a really good start. It's been very calm here, and talking to a number of staff and students, they said, the first 4 days we just kind of got to be here, and then we had 4 days off, and then we came back for 4 more days, and then somebody caught me today and said, who scheduled 5 days this week? We're doing good on 4. Like, yeah, we were. Hopefully 5 will be just as great. But it was a nice transition, or a nice start to the year, as we kind of went through that first week where some students are still transitioning between classes, figuring schedules out. Freshmen are finding their way around the building, and man, the day after Labor Day, it was just like, it's like we'd been here for a month and a half already. They were just going where they needed to go. So really think that some of the efforts that were put in by our counseling and our middle schools about getting our students together in 7th and 8th grade and working on a transition plan has really started to pay off. And I heard from a senior young lady the other day. She said, we don't even know those kids from Montgomery. There was a little girl that went to the, we didn't even know the kids from Montgomery really. And she's like, we still just kind of hang out in our own thing. And she said it's different now seeing what the 7th and 8th graders now coming in as 9th graders to the high school look. So getting that perspective from a student I thought was interesting, that they're even recognizing that. We're hopefully continue to build on that, but our focus here is just at the high school to continue to build on all the things that we have been doing and trying to make improvements in all the areas, and focusing on another section of AVID this year, now having 2 sections here, having hopefully a new system in place to help our students move about the building, a flexible schedule type system, encouraging that personalized learning, and maybe a little bit more hybrid learning, helping our students prepare for the type of education they might see when they get out into post-secondary education, and making decisions that are based on what's going to help prepare the students for the next level. Those are things that we're continuously working on here. New staff has been great to have. I've heard also comments from students. We really like the new staff. They're really fun. I said, well, wait till they give you assignments. But no, they said they seem like they're really nice and excited to be here, and it's very true. It's something I've witnessed too. We're lucky to have the police. Oh gosh, Terry. Police is not chief of Minnetonka, but she's an assistant chief. Anyway, she's teaching the course that Dave Struckman taught last year when he just kind of filled in on a kind of an emergency whim as we had an instructor leave. And now we've got Shelley Peterson here lives just north of here a little bit, I believe. And she's coming in uniform every day teaching the criminal justice class, and she's doing a great job. So just an example of the opportunities that we have here that we're trying to continue to build on. So excited for a good start and keep it moving in the right direction. And we're excited to see some equipment start to move in from all different sides of our building. And I know some kids are excited to watch that too. So probably some learning opportunities in that whole process as well.
Absolutely. Good deal.
Thank you.
Any questions
Thank
or
you very
comments
much.
from the board?
Exciting.
Thank you very much.
And with that, we have an enrollment update.
One of the things that I'm finding as each year we get better at is coming in with some cleaner data within our enrollment for these initial reports. As I take a look back sometimes in the past, you're like, wow, we had students in that were shared time and all kinds of things. And so I think we're just getting cleaner in our data. As a bottom line, we're seeing an initial of K-12 at 1847. Our high school did grow as we anticipated. Last year we were at around a 540, and so that has increased as well. Our kindergarten, in particular, our kindergarten at TCU Lonsdale is considerably lower than what we had anticipated. And yet it did not appear that we had a high level or number of open enrollment out or anything. I think we just had some aspects of students maybe within that initial birth rate, within the projections, some moves probably happened. And that can happen from a time the baby's born to when they get to be that 5 years old. But certainly a area that we were anticipating to be higher. Otherwise, pretty close on to where we expected. You know, our first time having 5th grade at TCU Lonsdale, didn't know how, you know, if all the students would stay. We did have some students come to TCU Montgomery, so that is a pretty low there as well. And yet for our first year to have 5th grade there, I thought it was really important to invest in some classes. And I do know we have at least 1 to 2 families who are moving in and have 5th graders there. So that'll grow a little bit. But otherwise, holding fairly steady. We wondered if at the August 27th, if we'd see a big shift to the day after Labor Day, and really did not. And so we'll continue these monthly reports.
Great, thank you. All right, next we'll move on to new business and on awarding our TCU High School Building Project Award.
Our board members, as Dave Maroney presented in the informational items, the bid and where it landed, what alternates were there, what alternates are being recommended. At this point, I do recommend that the board approve this bid for Metcon contractor to move forward with our high school building project bid award.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Dan Rudd, second by Michelle Borchert, to approve the contract for the TCU High School Building Project to Metcon Construction of Faribault, Minnesota, and that would be with the alternates.
With alternates, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next, our ACT funding.
This is a follow-up to the information item that was brought forward to the board a month ago by Mr. Fitter on where our ACT landed and everything. Mr. Eppen, would you like to come and speak to this a bit?
Sure.
He was already on his way up.
He was.
All right, I don't have a lot more to share than what Mr. Fitter shared last month, but just going off of the state, we still haven't gotten a firm number yet as to how much they're committing, but we're operating under the assumption that it'll be very similar to last year, which they paid for all of the students who took the ACT test that were identified as free and reduced lunch population students, which was about 1/3 of our population who took it. So, and the cost per that was, I think it was $45 last year, but it's in the neighborhood of $45 to $50 per test. So when you look at 140 students taking it this coming spring, and if the state pays for, again, 1/3, which is about where our free and reduced population will be, it's probably going to end up costing us in the neighborhood of about $5,000. Would guess probably just slightly lower than that, but that's the estimate that we're operating off of now. Should be very similar to last year. So.
I think one of the pieces that's been significant is since we have moved to the ACT testing for all juniors, and that it is not any longer a requirement from the state, that almost still every single student is taking it.
That's great.
I mean, that's certainly a sign of that they could see the value, that it could open some doors and some, wow, giving that a shot. So I think there's some real confidence building happening there too.
They'll all go over to the Legion and take, it'll be a week from Friday, we'll go over and take the practice test, and 21st. And we'll go through that data with them. They'll take a look at it. They'll help do the correcting piece. They'll see where they score in each of the different areas. I think that just all kind of sets the stage for them wanting to see how much have I grown. And certainly for us as educators, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals in the building who are working with these kids every day, we want to see how much they've grown. And it's interesting when the scores come out because we get to take a peek and see what kind of growth did we have. And while you saw some of the data earlier today, we had good success lately, and we're hoping to continue that. So it's a good measure for us to help us determine where we're at.
It's a good thing to do. All
I'll
right.
make a motion.
Yeah, I'll seek a motion.
Second.
Motion by Christie Gettle, second by Dale Bus to approve the funding for the ACT test without writing portion for the junior class. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have the certification of the maximum levy authority for 2018, payable 2019.
Superintendent Preisler, members of the board, I'm Jean Kopp, Director of Business Services for Tri-City United. I'm requesting board approval for the maximum levy authority for the 18 pay 19 levy. So this would be paid by taxpayers in the 2019 calendar year and would be part of our funding for the 19-20 school year, so our fiscal year 20 school year. The action tonight is not the final levy. This is really one of the first steps in the process beyond the initial data submissions that Terry and I have done for the levy, but this is one of the first steps. And approval for maximum levy authority allows ample time for accurate calculation review and necessary adjustments through the final report deadline of December 28th, 2018. It's common at this meeting in September for districts to request the maximum levy authority. And you can see the timeline there below. We have to submit either having a specific number or max levy authority by the 30th. Later in the year, closer, and probably in December, we would have our truth in taxation and final levy recommendation before things are due at December 28th. So like I said, an initial step here. So before the board votes to adopt the district's final levy in December, we would also review the 19 budget. The district does recognize the importance of providing a minimal impact to taxpayers and will remain as conservative as possible in the district's local levy authority. So do you all have any questions? We had just had our first pass, and so we'll be making some adjustments and things, but that came out late Friday. So there will be changes this year, remembering that this is going to be the levy that we'll have the first time we have the bonds that were approved last year. Will be on this forthcoming levy. So we'll do analysis that will help us look at it more apples to apples, and then what it truly is with those additional levy authority that we were granted by the voters and that we did through LTFM bonding as well.
Good deal. Any questions? I'll seek a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Ashley Recevo, second by Christie Gettle to certify the maximum levy authority for the 2018 payable 2019. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Thank you. All right, next we have our community ed rates of pay.
Members of the board, we did approve a community ed rates of pay earlier this year, but at that point did not have indicators there for driver's education, the behind-the-wheel instruction or classroom instruction. And as per Mr. Mark Preising's recommendation, in order to be able to ensure that we have adequate documentation for audits as to why do we pay what we pay, it is important for us to have these types of documents indicating board-approved rates of pay. And so with this, Mark, is there any pieces that you'd like to add to?
No, just that the only change in the community ed rates of pay that I think were adopted in May is the driver's ed, and that those are 3% each year. That's the only change.
Otherwise, the other rates are all the same.
Good deal. I'll seek a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ashley Recevo, second by Dan Rudd to approve the community ed rates of pay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. All right, next we have the superintendent evaluation summary.
All right, there we go. As a part of the annual evaluation for the superintendent, conducted the inputs with you as board members, had closed session to review that information more in depth, and the final step is to take action on the evaluation summary. It does show once again the indicators of outstanding, very good, expectations met, improvement needed, or unacceptable performance. And just as I shared with the board in the other Google survey piece results, I did have a comparative to the year before, and so wanting to hold to some consistency there, show what the ranking and ratings were a year ago as compared to where they are, where they landed this year. Appreciate the thoroughness and the feedback from our school board. That means a great deal to me, and take that to heart in determining goals, not only for us as a district, but in my professional improvements as well. Summary aspect, there were improvements in each one of the categories, and these are categories that were developed by MSBA. And some of the areas of strength that appeared to come through were leadership and communication, in particular in communication with you as board members, the financial oversight and budgeting, having attitude of enthusiastic and positive, and initiative and integrity came through in your narratives as well. Areas for growth, some for as an entire district, but also that came from your feedback. Student achievement, no question, needs to be an area for growth. One of the areas within the survey was continuing to seek ways to involve our parents, students, and community, listening for multiple perspectives, and continued recruitment, retention, and growth of our staff as well. And some goals that foresee to be developing as superintendent, but also for us as a district. Again, that's improving student achievement. It's a must that we complete, follow through, and communicate the continued work within the building projects. Coordinating and following through with the operational strategic plan that will be initiated this year. And developing pathways and supports for college and career readiness for all students. Not only within the Greater Twin Cities United Way grant, but what types of pathways we can develop here, and true authentic internship, job shadowing, and apprenticeship opportunities for our students. So that's a summary document, but Chair of the board, if there's aspects you'd like to share within the summary, or anything from the board member as a whole, please feel free to do so. So it gives a thorough glance at the evaluation
Sure.
summary. So
I did a little math, and with the averages for the overall rating for each content area, it was a 4.43 out of 5, and which is fantastic. And if you go through and do the math, I think it was just a little over 4 out of 5 on the rating scale from last year. So it was a huge jump, and it's a better understanding of us as board members on what Terry does do on a day-to-day basis also. Overall, I'd like to add that our Superintendent Preisler, her dedication, her leadership, her work ethics, her personality, and her poise show through each and every day that she does on a daily basis, not only for our students, but staff and district as a whole, and also including our communities. Also, the knowledge and understanding that she has gained over the years on the budgeting and financials have helped build a solid foundation for our district to build upon for the years to come. And I'd like to thank you for all the service that you do, the countless hours that you spend in the office and out of the office and on the phone and in the car and everything that you do. You do a great job at it, and we're very appreciative and happy to have you as our superintendent.
thank you.
Anyone like to add anything more? You're more than welcome to.
I just agree with everything she said. I really do appreciate everything you do. And I think your enthusiasm and love of this district and our students and our staff and everybody that has anything to do with TCU, I think talks for itself. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate being able to partner with you as we guide and support this district and continuing to move forward.
Awesome. If there isn't anything else, then we'll seek a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Kevin Huber, second by Michelle Borchert to approve the 2017-18 superintendent evaluation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed, 7-0. Next on to approving a contract for the Czech Heritage Fall feasibility study. I'm not gonna say that listed.
Yeah. Mark, I would ask you to come forward on this one, please.
Hosington, is it? Yeah, that's what I thought. It looked scarier than what it was.
So about a year ago, Smith sponsors a small town grant program. And it's up to $10,000, and your town or area can't be any larger than 5,000 people. And it's to do economic community development, community engagement. It's kind of whatever your unique spin or idea that you can come up with. So I spoke with the 3 city managers again about a year ago. And so we came up with a plan to develop a proposal to study the possibility, I'm using really kind of nebulous terms, to have a trail, a walking and biking trail up connect our 3 communities. And our bigger picture, bigger term thing would be then to go down to the Cicada Hills Singing Trail in Waterville to connect. A bike and a walking trail. But this is a really long-term project. But in order to get that project off the ground, we developed a MOU between the school district and the 3 cities about this project. We sent out 8 RFPs, and we had 4 returned RFPs with bids or quotes. And then 2 of them are groups that do actual park and trail planning. And this one HKG has been heavily involved in a lot of trail and park planning, especially in Dakota and Ramsey County. So what this, I met with Rick Lee, and he recommended that that the agreement move forward. There was one change in one word on a page that referred to us as the city, and it was changed to client. But this is just really the first step. Okay, now again, this is a really long-term process. All this is going to do is this engineering and planning firm is going to come up with 2 different reports about possible routes that a bike and walking trail could be or could take that would connect the 3 cities. Part of the RFP is that the trail needs to come within about 100 yards or less of each of the 3 downtowns. Because I see something like this as being, it's a community engagement project, but it's a fitness, wellness, activity, kind of getting out kind of a contract or a concept and project. But I also feel, and I've talked with the chambers about this, and the cities too, is that I would see something like this as being a huge economic development tool in the community also. And I'm not the economic development authority person in the county or in any of the cities, but it's a little tricky now because, you know, Lonsdale is in a different county. So there's some kind of moving pieces. And this is just the first step in probably 50 or 60 steps. Actually, it's probably the 3rd or 4th step. And all this will do is produce a study. It costs approximately $7,000 to $80,000 just for the construction part of off-road trail. So if Lonsdale is about 10 or 11 miles, the center's 10 or 11 miles, that's about $1 million to go from Montgomery to either city. There is funding available for things like that though. But you can access some funds through the Department of Transportation, from the Minnesota Parks and Trails Commission, but you need data first in order to do that. And that's what the study will do, is it'll produce data. These are our best routes, this is what they think the economic impact will be, these are the potential people that would use this. So that's what this is for.
So this is the study.
This is just
not the building.
This is just a study. This is not building a trail. This is a study to see if building a trail would be a reasonable thing.
It's a cool
Will
idea.
this study cost the district anything?
No, it was a $10,000 Smith grant. So it's not costing the school district any money.
I think it's cool. Thanks for doing the work on it.
You're welcome. It's been a lot of work, but it's been fun, but it's been a lot of work though.
I think it'll be a neat way to tie all the communities together
I think it
in a
would be too.
different realm of things.
Yeah, I think it would be too. Any other questions about that?
How long will it take him to do it?
About 2 to 2.5 months.
Okay.
I thought you were gonna say years for a minute. I'm like, yeah, this is a long.
It's a long process, you know, the tortoise and the hare.
You talked about how long it takes.
No,
so
that's
I
kind of
wasn't
cool.
sure.
And I'm assuming you'll bring it back, like,
Yes.
full year, okay.
Yes.
Good deal. All right, well, I'll seek a motion.
So move.
A second.
I have a motion by Dale Buss, second by Chris Tagetto, to approve the contract with Hosington Kogler Group, Inc. for the Czech Heritage Trail feasibility study. Mouthful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Lastly, we have, thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
The change of our location, October work session, and date of the Lonsdale listening session.
This was a follow-up to our conversation at our last work session about looking ahead at some of our meetings and knowing that one of the aspects of the operational strategic plan is an overview session with the school board and administration. And one of the dates that was open with TeamWorks was October 22nd, which we had at that point, knew was a work session, which fits well, except that it was also scheduled for a listening session with with Lonsdale, and the location of that work session was to be at TCU Lonsdale. And so, in following up from what you as a board had asked me to do, was to take to solidify the dates with Dennis Cheesebro to make sure that that date really was the one. And then to come with a recommendation to take a look at moving our listening session, as well as then that does mean moving location. And so bearing in mind that really our next September work session should be some of the strategic work and some of the goal setting aspects that we did not do at the August work session as a board. So keeping September for that so it doesn't get away from us too far, and also with the board self-evaluation. And moving the October work session to the overview that evening with TeamWorks. I'm recommending that we move the listening session to the November work session, as well as changing the location of the November work session to TCU Lonsdale. And in combination with that, changing the work session location for October back here to the high school. So this is a multi-step recommendation.
Will you send out invites for this stuff through our email to change it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and also be in my weekly updates. So 3 aspects: changing the location of the work session, the October work session to here at the high school, changing the location November work session to TCU Lonsdale, and changing the listening session to the November work session.
Got it.
Do you know what the date is in November?
Do you remember that,
It's the
Brenda? Is it the
26th.
26th?
Yeah.
Thank you, Krista.
Sorry, Brenda.
That's funny, I don't have a calendar.
I'm like, I have a calendar right here.
Okay, I'll say it through once. I'll seek a motion to change the location of the October work session to the TCU High School band room, and to change the date of the Lonsdale listening session to the November 26th work session, along with changing the location of that to the Lonsdale TCU building.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Ashley Recevo, second by Michelle Borchert, to change the location of the October work session to the TCU High School band room, and to change the date of the Lonsdale listening session to November 26th work session, along with changing the location to the Lonsdale TCU building. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0. Next, I will seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Motion by Kevin Huber, second by Dan Rudd, to adjourn the meeting at 7:53 p.m. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is passed 7-0, and meeting is adjourned.